What's going on, everyone? So, there are some rumors going around that the opening scene could take place at Stu Macher's house, right? And that essentially it sounds like it'll be like an Airbnb or a museum or something. So, kind of mask the real world Stu Macher House, right? But we know this movie doesn't take place in Woodsboro. So, it kind of begs the question of will we see multiple killers in multiple locations and multiple destinations? Now, obviously, this is assuming that it actually does take place in Stu Macher's house, or the opening scene takes place in Stu Macher's house, or there's any type of reference into Stu Macher's house. Now, this does seem, and I've talked about this before, like a very Stu kind of driven film. Like there's going to be a lot of Easter eggs and stuff for Stu Macher and whatnot. Whether he actually is alive or not is yet to be seen. Who knows? I know there's a huge kind of audience that wants that to be the case. But sticking solely to like Ghostface and that element of things, I don't hate the idea of like. To me, it really boils down to do they establish kind of the cult route, right? We know that Sidney Prescott, right? She's has a bar, she's living her life, and she has her family, right? And Ghostface is going to be there to attack her. As far as we know from, just all the shots and, behind the scenes stuff and everything like that, that it doesn't appear that she at any point goes to Woodsboro. Personally, I hope she doesn't. Right? I've talked about it, right? The only reason she went to Woodsboro in Scream 5 was because Dewey died. Otherwise, she never would have stepped foot in Woodsboro. And what are you going to do? You're going to like fly her kid and husband to Woodsboro in order to lure her there? Like, that just doesn't make sense. Now, obviously, it could just be that there's like an attack at Stu's house to just kind of send a statement and maybe put Sydney on notice or something. And it could just be as simple as that. But I don't hate the idea of, you kind of, especially if you are going to kind of set up and establish the kind of cult route, have Ghostface attacks taking place in multiple areas. And maybe we kind of, you have the main story, and maybe you see a couple people die, like little cutaways and stuff, that is just kind of building and telling the story that's going to go in and bleed into Scream 8, because we know Scream 8 is coming. So the fact that we know Scream 8 is coming, I could see them maybe having elements that will be further explained in Scream 8, or things that'll kind of trickle in to set up Scream 8. Also, if you have kind of that approach of like, hey, here's a bunch of different Ghostface attacking in different areas. I don't want it to get too convoluted in this film, but like, if you have a killer, take some people out in Woodsboro and then kind of establish that maybe you like have a couple scenes where you jump to like different areas and see people dying or whatnot, right? I wouldn't hate that idea, because it could spawn the potential of other films, other stories, other franchises, things along those lines, right? Because supposedly they still want to do a series, right? Well, if you've already established through Kirby, as well as certain little things in Scream 5, such as, the Dreaded thread and how Amber and Richie met and stuff like that, that there are Ghostface attacks all over the country, right? Like, in potentially all over the world. That was Kirby's whole backstory, is that like she specializes in Ghostface attacks. She specializes in, Ghostface going to these areas, and she tracked the Ghostface down to where she's at. So that means Ghostface started elsewhere. Now, was it the Bailey family? Yeah, okay, but they started, out where she was at and then trickled her way down. So to me, I think they've already laid the blueprint and foundation for a potential Ghostface cult. Perfect. Okay. If you're going to go that route, then you would imagine that there are Ghostface, attacking everywhere, right? It's not just Sidney Prescott. And we know for a fact it's not just Sidney Prescott, because Sam and Tara and everybody's been attacked, right? And it had nothing to do with Sidney Prescott. So you have people all over that are crazy enough that aren't just specifically after Sidney. So what if you started to establish some of these little subplots, some of these plot points, to where you're able to kind of, again, open the door for all these other potentials. Maybe we see a character or something, like you'll see movies kind of show a glimpse of a character, right? And then, a later movie, you'll see that character return, and it's like, that was just kind of like a brief introduction, so you get familiar with that character, or you get to see their face, and so that way you recognize them for a future film. Or maybe you could do something like that, or a series, so you could kind of plug in and play a character that maybe survives a Ghostface attack, takes out a Ghostface or something, and it's like, okay, remember that character because we're gonna follow that story, right? Maybe it's like the end of something, or maybe the character's dad or whatever gets taken out, and it's like, okay, well, here, keep an eye and remember that character because we're going to see that character later, right? Again, obviously, I don't want things to get too chaotic, too convoluted, too crazy, but they already appear to be establishing, like, hey, Ghostface isn't just, secluded incident in the world of Sidney Prescott. It's everywhere. There's ghost faces that are popping up all over the place that are trying to take people out all over the place that that are unrelated to Sydney and whatnot, right? Obviously, Sam and Tara, they had the connection because of Woodsboro and everything, but there was people being attacked in New York and L.A. and you name it, small towns, big cities, all of it. No one is safe type thing, and I do think that if you could have something where I don't, I think it could. I think if you had two kind of Ghostface stories operating at the same time, I think that would be a little too crazy and convoluted. And I just don't trust the writers to do that well enough. But I do think if you did, like I said, if you did like little kind of flashes of things where you set up the opening scene, that's kind of like the signal for Sidney Prescott and to establish, okay, Ghostface is out there type thing. And then, maybe towards the end of the film, maybe there's like some speech or something where it's like, my men are out there everywhere, and you just get like all these like little cuts to Ghostface like killing people all over the place. And it's like some massive attack type thing, right? Like I think you could do some kind of fun, creative things in that regard, to where you're kind of establishing the Ghostface and the main Ghostface, and maybe even like the cult leader or whatever, assuming that they go that route. I mean, you can do this without the kind of cult idea. I just think it would be easier and cleaner if you did go the cult route, but kind of set that up, and then from there you kind of bleed that into like showing like, hey, there's ghost faces here and there's ghost faces there, and then like I said, that could spin into you making a series or other little off branch, like they're doing the Kirby movie. Okay, well, you got the Kirby movie, and they've been talking about doing a series since basically Scream 5. So it's like, okay, well, if you're gonna do the series, if you're gonna do these little spin-off films, you're gonna do all these various things. Great, perfect, I'm on board, let's do it. But it'd be kind of cool to sort of set those storylines up. Maybe have a couple really cool ones, like, oh man, that Ghostface, like how the Chrome Ghostface mask. Maybe maybe we see Ghostface wearing like a red mask, and it's like, well, why like that? Oh, that Ghostface was really cool, right? And you can kind of explore that story and kind of let the audience dictate which one of those characters you're gonna branch off into next, type thing. I think you could have some creativity in that regard. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. What do you think? How you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you like the idea of like multiple Ghostface in multiple areas? Do you think, nah, stay away from that? However you feel, whatever your thoughts are. Either way, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me out. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel. What are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.